Okay, so we can start working on the core activation shot. So we don't need the GPU for this one, and we actually don't need the studio either. And we can just create a new cloner grid, click, reset location and rotation. Count Z can be 0, and count X and Y, let's do 50 by 50. It's really taking a while for the cloner to update in 5.7. Scale the cubes down to 0.1. And we need more, so 100 by 100. And then enable the range. Uncheck scale uniform. And let's make them both free. Let's set the Z to maybe 2.5 and X and Y to 2. Just trying to get this random greeble looking scatter of cubes. And we can randomize their position a little bit as well. So the offset maximum may be 3. Materials, and let's give it our MI plastic material. And I'll just move one of these lights so that it's reflecting in the cubes and I can see what's going on. And now I want these tiny green lights here and there. So let's call this one cloner surface, and then Control D, F2, and cloner lights. Set the scale to 0.05, might have to be even smaller in the end, and give it that emissive material that we have here. Yeah, so they're still too big, so let's try 0.005, and then you have to move the cloner up, and there are still too many of them. So what you can do is divide the count by half and multiply the spacing by 2. So it will fit in the same area, but you'll have half the amount. So I'll just do count 50 by 50 and spacing 22 by 22. And now you only have a dot here and there. And if you want it to be brighter, we can use the stronger emissive material. Just apply that. So with the cloner surface selected, go to Effector, create linked effector. I want it to be a box. And you can increase the inner extent to 200 so that there's no gradient in between. And set the scale to 0. Hit R and scale it down. And so this will be the opening for the GPU core. So select cloner lights, go to effector, click on the plus sign, and add effector. So let's call this effector 1 and Control D on that one. So for effector 2, I basically just want to scale it on the x-axis to extend it, and then the y-axis to make it thinner. These will be sort of the information highways, right? This is where the energy beams will flow. And let's copy it one more time and just hit E and rotate it 90 degrees. Next, I need there to be a floor in this hole. So I will copy the cloner surface one more time and call it cloner floor. And for this one, I don't want it to be affected by effector 2, so you can clear that, and 3, clear that, and then you can just move it down. And that's how we give it some kind of a floor in those ridges. And finally, I need this big opening to have walls around. So I will copy the cloner floor one more time, and this one can just be cloner walls. Move that one down, and I want to scale it up on the z-axis to create like a higher wall. So for the range scale, I'm just doing 20 minimum and 20 maximum. And now you can just move it down, and we probably have to move the effector down so it's being affected. So just scale up the effector, and here you go. We have this leftover cube. You can just hide that cube. And we can go to create lights, point light, reset the location of the light, set it to that green color, and move it down to the bottom of the tunnel. And we are starting to get somewhere. So now we can work on the main cube. So I'll copy the cloner surface one more time, Control D, and this one will be our cloner cube. Now for this one, I don't want it to be affected by any effectors, so just reset all of them and I don't want any range, so uncheck that. And let's try 25 by 25. That's still too big, so 20 by 20. I do think these could be a bit smaller, so 0.075 maybe. 8 by 8 by 8 for the spacing, and 20 on the z-axis as well. So we actually got a cube and it fits nicely, so that's great. So now we need multiple colors inside of this cube. So I'll just copy the default cube 4 times. Maybe the first one can be the emissive one, and scroll down to mesh renderer random. And this one needs to be smaller than the others. So 0.02, let's try that. Okay, that will work. And so for the remaining cubes, let's just reuse our materials that we already have. So silver for this one, and black metal for this one, and the plastic is on the last one. So that works. Now, if you don't like how it's placed, you can just go in the cloner and change the seed, and this will randomize them differently. So let's move the cube into place, which is approximately around here. And I want to grab the point light, Control D. Let's move it up and to the side. And I just kind of want to light it up on the edges like this. Lower the intensity to maybe just 1, and then hold Alt one more time. And move this one over here. Next, we can add the energy beams. So I will hide the cube, copy cloner floor, and call it cloner beam 1. And for this one, I want the layout to be a line with no range. The count, let's do 500. Okay, so these will need to be much smaller. So let's try 0.01. And they're really hard to see, so let's give them that emissive material right away. And basically want to lower the spacing until they overlap and it just turns into a line. So about 1.3 for me right now. And let's move it to the beginning and position it in the opening we made. And we still need it to be longer, so keep extending the count until it reaches all the way to the other side. And then we can go to effector, create another linked effector. So this will be effector 4. And for this one, the shape needs to be unbound with procedural mode set to circular wave with scale set to 0. And you need to increase the frequency and increase the pan. And so now all we have to do is just move the effector in the middle, and they're gonna go outwards like this. It's just going a bit too fast, so I'm gonna lower the frequency so they're longer beams. And then you can just play with the pan to control the speed. So I think I'll do about 100 for the pan and 5.7 for the frequency in my case, if you're following along. And we need 2 of them. So cloner beam 1, Control D, until we have cloner beam 2, and move this one, E to rotate 90 degrees, and position it in this opening, just like this. Enable the cube, and let's look at everything together. I think it's starting to look not too bad. And so we know we're gonna need to activate these beams to come on. The easiest way to do that is to make another effector. So I'll select cloner beam 1 and make another linked effector, and this will be our effector 5. Make sure that cloner beam 2 also is affected by effector 5. For effector 5, we can set the shape to unbound and just set the scale to 0, but then you can just play with the magnitude. So if I set the magnitude to 0, I'm stopping the effector from having any effect, so it just brings them back. So we can simply animate the magnitude to bring our energy beams into the scene. So I'll drop effector 2 into the sequencer and set a keyframe for the magnitude. And so they are disabled until, let's say, about frame 25. We'll have to play with the timing. And then 30 frames later, we can just set the magnitude to 0 and they appear just like this. So now we have our base scene prepared, and in the next video we will activate the cube and have the cubes gradually lit up by setting up the material.